Hello everyone. We are going to discuss today the second part of teaching from Hindu sacred books. In this lecture, we will discuss about the Quran, Bhagavad Gita, Ramayana, Mahabharata, Bible and Quran. The teachings from Hindu sacred books are known as 18 Mahapuran, Bhagavad Gita, Ramayana and Mahabharata. So starting with teachings, Indian noble religious traditions, the holy heritage of Hinduism and the rich culture background, all these are based on the Vedas. Vedic sacrifices and the uncompromising way of renunciation as taught by Upanishadic sages and seers, both of which were beyond the reach of the common man whose hunger for religion was no less sincere. The Purans satisfied the common man and satiated his hunger for a spiritual quest. In fact, our the centuries Purans have gained so much importance that today they, from the bedrock of Hinduism, the word we will define the word Puran. The word Puran is defined that which is old is still new. There are many stories, some of which are historical and other metaphorical, but all of them are full of morals. By 700 AD, the 18 Purans now in vogue had been compiled, and this number 18 for Purans got rightly fixed up thereafter. The 18 Mahapurans, as known, are as Agni Mahapuran, भागवत महापुराण, भविष्य महापुराण, ब्रह्म महापुराण, ब्रह्मदा, ब्रह्म वैवर्त, गरुड़, कूर्म, लिंगा, मार्कंडे महापुराण, मत्स्य, नारायणिया, पद्म, स्कंद, वामन, वाराह, वायु and Vishnu. If we will talk about size wise, the Skand Puran contains the maximum of 81,000 slokas. The Markandeya Puran contains the least number, only 9,000 slokas. Whatever may be the number of Puranas, the main purpose of all the 18 Puranas is to drive home the central theme and teach that man acquires punya or merit by serving the society, while inflicting any harm on the society will add to his discredit. Though our tradition fixed the number of Mahapuranas as 18, the growth of Puran literature went on unabated. Hence, those of Purans which could not find a place in the list of 18 were accommodated under the title Upapuran. Even though the Smriti, which is known as Veda, sub part of the Veda, the Smriti, which is also known as Upanishad, and the Purans preach the same thing. The method of preaching varies from one another. Commenting on these different methods of approach, the Paramacharya of Kanchi says that the Vedas are like a father who commands his children to do this or to do that. Just like the father who commands his children, the Vedas impose many injunctions on us and command us to certain jobs. Hence, they are called the Shastra, which means commands. On the other hand, the Smriti act like a mother. They tells us the same injunctions, but in more pleasing and appealing way without the elements of rigidity. The Purana tells us same thing like a wife appealing to her husband to do particular thing. They can be called Kantha Smriti. Just as a wife cajoles her husband, this is best for you. This brings honor to our family. Have you not heard the story of so and so and so and so. Husband responds to her entreaties positively. The Puranas appeal to the heart of the person and makes him obey the Vedic injunctions. The Purana have admirably succeeded in preserving and propagating Hindu religion and culture, especially through the critical period of history. Their simple exposition of the Vedantic principle of philosophy, explanation of the various aspects of Hindu Dharma, and including people to follow the path of Indian ethical values in life have contributed immensely to the growth and sustenance of Hindu ethos. Now, coming on Bhagavad Gita. If the Upanishads are the textbook of philosophical principles discussing man, word, and God, the Gita is a handbook of instructions as to how every human being can come to live the subtle philosophical principles of Vedanta in the actual work, a day work. Srimad Bhagavad Gita, the divine song of Lord, occurs in Bhishma Parv of the Mahabharata and comprises 18 chapters from 25th to 42nd. This great handbook of practical living marked a positive revolution in Hinduism and inaugurated a Hindu renunciation for the age that followed the Puranic era. In the Song of Lord, the Gita, the poet Sri Vedavyas has brought the Vedic truths into the active field of day-to-day social, commercial, and political life. Religion is philosophy in action. From time to time, an ancient philosophy needs intelligent reinterpretation in the context of new time and men of wisdom. Prophets and seers guide the common man on how to apply effectively and ancient laws in his present life. In varying degrees, every man is a victim of this Arjun disease and the Krishna cure. Being specific is available to all of us at all times in the philosophy of the Gita. It is significant that the Bhagavad Gita calls itself a Yoga Shastra and not a Dharma Shastra. Though the scripture arises out of moral problems, the question that is posed to the outset is whether in the given circumstances Arjun refusing a fight was act of dharma or adharma. For in Hinduism, ethics is only a subordinate branch of metaphysics. Ethics is the science of human conduct and character. It is a study of what a man ought to do and to be. But what a man ought to do and to be depends upon the end and aim of human life. And this again depends upon the nature and purpose of the universe, of which he is an integral part. Moksha is a negative expression as it connotes freedom from the bonds of world, but yoga is used in Gita is positive expression for the same experience. The part of life begins with right discrimination, goes through obedience to the law and moral action, and then through self forgetting love and the service, and end is spiritual freedom, where the individual realizes that he is part and parcel of all embracing spirits. It is seen that Krishna repeatedly goading his friend with the words, get up and fight. This need not necessarily mean that Gita is a war mongering scripture of the ruling class. It is called to each one of us to get up and fight the battle of our own life according to our own vasana vasana means swadharma, so that we may exhaust them and thus gain inner purity. As we take up uh, stanza by stanza for a close study of the entire song, we shall try to see how Krishna indicates the same truth from different angles of vision and explains it is a different and explains it in a different words. Every man has first of all to be true to himself, to the law of his own being. He has to achieve the best he is capable of by perfecting his own natural and endowments and by making the most of the circumstances in which he is placed. It is only that he will become an efficient servant of God and efficient member of society. The advantages of such a life of action are many. First of all, it is obviously the line of least resistance. Swadharma connotes ease and spontaneity, and action which is not done with perfect ease is not the best action, and an action which is really beyond one's capacity and which is undertaken only through ignorance and rashness is the worst. Now coming on Ramayana and Mahabharata, two great epics written more than 2 million ago for uh, books. Mahabharata encompasses all walks of life and contains 10,000 slokas, but Ramayana and Mahabharata are in the Sanskrit, and every human dilemma and actions are depicted in these mega volumes. We will discuss one by one. So, starting with Mahabharata, next to the Rig Veda Samhita, the Mahabharata is perhaps the most remarkable work in Sanskrit literature. It is the biggest of words epics since the commencement of the 60th century AD. It is known to have consist of 1 lakh verses. The writer of this great epic were political thinkers, poets, and dramatists almost uninterruptedly from about the 5th century BC. The Mahabharata represents a whole literature rather than a single homogeneous work. It constitutes a veritable treasure house of Indian mythology stories, both secular and religious, and no other single work gives an insight into the innermost depth of the soul of the people as it does. It is song of victory. It is a Purana Samhita containing diverse stories of seers and sages. It is an authoritative book of law, morality, and social and political philosophy, laying down rules for the attainment of dharma, arth, kam, and moksha. When dharma, we talk about dharma, arth, and kam, it is called trivarga. The great kings of the epic were usually a monarch who could boast of all illustrious pedigree and claim to rule by hereditary right, but elective monarchies were not known. The royal advisors in the epic did not hesitate to point out raised bias to the king when he went wrong. The king had also to defer or the wishes of the Brahmins, the Sreni Mukhyas, elders of the corporations, and the people whose opinion could not always be ignored. The connection between the king and his people was based on the theory of mutual advantage. The king was to protect the people and do what was pleasing to them in return for the taxes that he received. For the efficient discharge of his duties, he had to learn the Veda and Shastra and practice self-control. The army seems to have been recruited from all castes. Women were accorded a place of honor in the epic society and were allowed a considerable amount of freedom in the early period. The exposition of dharma in its wider concept is given in the Santi and Anushasan Parv, exposing Raj Dharma, Apad Dharma, Moksha Dharma, and Dan. Raj is the known of the duties of the king being the recognized head of the governmental machinery which regulates the social political structure. Apadharm conduct in time of calamity applicable especially to the first two word of the Indian society when the ordinary modes of life and conduct are not possible. Moksha dharma was performed emancipation from liability to rebirth. which is the highest goal of human existence, and Dan Dharma is the liberty. Now coming on the teaching from Bible. The Bible contains two main parts, the book of the Old Testament and the book of the New Testament. The English translation of the Holy Bible are made from old Hebrew texts. The Bible is not only a great literature but gives a message to all people that the Bible be understood and also applied in their daily life. The Bible is read in traditional way, that is to discover what is actually states and means. Some salient points of Bibles are the Bible, however, uses a range of literary techniques. Some of it is straightforward narrative, as in the Gospel accounts of Christ's life. Some of it is parable, as in the stories told by Jesus to illustrate a moral point. Some of it is metaphor, as when Jesus says, I am the vine and you are the branches. Or when he tells his accusers, destroy the temple and I will raise it again in 3 days. Christians are called upon to be contenders for their faith. This term suggests that they should be ready to stand up for their beliefs and they will face opposition. The Christian is told in uh, Peter 3.15, always be prepared to give an answer to everyone who asks you to give the reason for the hope that is within you. Christianity provides a kind of toolkit for Christian to meet its challenges. Christianity is the main foundation of Western civilization, the root of our most cherished values. The latest discoveries of modern science support the Christian claims that there is a divine being who created the universe. Darwin's theory of evolution, far from undermining the evidence for supernatural design, actually strengthens it. There is nothing in science that makes miracle impossible. It is reasonable to have faith. Atheism, not religion, is responsible for the mass murders of history. New values entered the world for the first time. People began to view society not from the perspective of the haughty aristocrat but from that of the ordinary man. This means that institutions should not focus on giving the rich and high-born new ways to pass their free time. Rather, they should emphasize how to give the common man a rich and meaningful life. In the New Christian framework, leaders are judged by how well they respond to the concerns and welfare of the people. Over time, people once known as followers are subject to become customers and constituents. As a consequence of the new ideal, the job of the political leaders, the merchant and the priest becomes serving the people by attending their political, material and spiritual needs. The system of modern capitalism arose in the West. To some of it's surprising that capitalism developed so easily in conjunction with a Christian ethic. But capitalism satisfied the Christian demand for an institution that channels selfish human desire toward the betterment of society. As Adam Smith put it in The Wealth of Nations, the desire to better our condition comes with us from the womb, that never leaves us till we go into the grave. The Bible is often quoted to say that money is the root of all evil, but the relevant passage actually says that love of money is the root of all evil. This is condemnation of the certain human attitude to wealth, not to condemnation of either wealth or commerce. The effect of capitalism is to steal human selfness to show that through the invisible hand of competition, the energies of the capitalist produce the abundance from which the whole society benefits. Now, teaching from Quran. Islam emerged at the turn of the 7th century AD. The monotheism is preached in the Holy Quran, which ended the age of superstition. The practice of worshipping nature and natural phenomena divine status to Muslims was discontinued. Quran changed the traditional order. It teaches peace, compassion, and tolerance. Some uh, teachings of the Quran can be discussed in the uh, in this way. A Muslim is one from whose tongue and hands people are safe. Further, one of the attributes of good God mentions in the Quran as As-Salam, which means peace and security. It is no exaggeration to say that Islam and violence are contradictory to each other. The concept of Islamic violence is so obviously unfounded that prima facie it stands rejected. The fact that violence is not sustainable in the present world is insufficient indication that violence as a principle is quite alien to the scheme of things in Islam. The philosophy of patience is mentioned in the Islamic culture. Patience as a virtue was given the utmost importance in the teaching of Prophet Muhammad. In the Quran, there are about 110 verses which contains the word patience or sabr. The Quran, in fact, goes to the extent of saying that success depends upon patience alone. O people, be patient and steadfast so that you may succeed. According to Islam, a truly Islamic movement arises out of feeling of benevolence for all the humanity. Its target being neither land nor power, it is always carried out through peaceful means. He has given you all that you asked him. The blessings of God mentioned in this verse are two kinds. The first kind comprises those blessings which already on the earth from the day man set food there for instance animals, water, air, and light. Other kinds of blessings are those which were not yet in existence at the time of the revelation of the Quran. For example, industrial machinery, railway, motor cars, aeroplanes, telephones, and electricity. The second kinds of things were invented mostly by the West, but today they are in the general use everywhere. The Quran tells us that God's signs are hidden in the heaven in the human soul. In modern time, the signs have come into full view through scientific discoveries and have established the veracity. In so, this was the all which we have discussed in this chapter. Thank you very much.